It's finally here, the Locked On MLB Prospects mock draft. I'm joined by our draft expert, Jeff Ellis of Locked On Guardians. We're making all 30 picks. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. He's Jeff Ellis of Locked On Guardians. Literally is our draft expert. It's in the Twitter username at JeffMLBDraft. So we're doing this today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDON for a $100 match on your first deposit. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Terms and conditions do apply, but check out Sleeper today. So, mock draft. Jeff has the odds. I have the evens. Jeff Ellis, with the number one pick in the 2023 MLB draft, who are the Pittsburgh Pirates taking?
A lot of rumors pop. I think the rumor that Cruz is trying to say he doesn't want to go there is true. So I'm going to lean towards Skenes with the first pick. I think there's an easy top two, and I'm gonna believe that rumor. There's many, but that's one I'm believing.
Yeah, and I could easily see a scenario where Skenes goes number one, and he would get more than he would get with the number two pick. Whereas, and then there's an easy fit, and obviously with the second pick, I'm gonna take Dylan Cruz with the Washington Nationals. His agent is Scott Boras. There is a relationship there between those teams. And it's really easy to kind of look at that and say, I can see a scenario where the biggest bonus in the draft is Dylan Cruz at number two, but Paul Skenes can get more at one and still be at slot than he would have gotten at two. So I'm going to take Dylan Cruz at two, and these are the two easiest picks in the entire draft to make because these are your your clear-cut top two. The big question is at three, Jeff, are you taking the other college bat in this first tier, or are you taking one of the prep guys?
So just in my general tier, I look at this is there's the first two guys are in a tier by themselves. Mm-hmm. And then I think Wyatt Langford is kind of in his own tier. And I think Langford last year and probably the year before would have been the top pick. And I'm going to have him the top pick. It's just, we know so much more about college guys. I don't have batted ball data, but teams do. And that really makes some of their evaluation easier. Langford is, he's a great athlete. He had high level production. There's not a lot of gaps in that game. That being said, Walker Jenkins is very close to that tier. I really feel like this is a top four draft. But at this point in time, I think that you got to go with those three college players, I should say, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and that makes it really tough for the Texas Rangers because I feel like if you go back and you look at some of their first round selections, they like to take college performers. They like to take guys from large conferences. Some of their previous guys, Josh Young, Justin Foscue, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, they like that. And you don't really have that here. You're looking at a Max Clark. You're looking at, if you wanted to go college, you're having to go to a guy like a Hurston Waldrop. So I think they're going to go a little bit out of traditional character. They're going to take a prep bat here. That's really all you can do. So it's going to be Walker Jenkins. Most physical prep bat in the draft. Looks like he could legitimately have 60 grade on both tools. So Walker Jenkins to the Rangers.
No, in last year they kind of did a little bit of that with the Rocker Porter slide down. So that I think that's very logical. For the Minnesota Twins at 5, they're in an interesting situation. It's like, who would they take here? It feels like they're leaning a little more college. They've gone a little more safety, and they took great sliding talents a year ago. Brooksley and Connor Prelip, I thought, were fantastic players where they got them. Yeah. I don't know if he's necessarily a sliding talent, but Kyle Teal feels like he is logical in this range and feels like in a lot of places he is the consensus 4th or 5th college player. So with him on the board, I think it makes sense. I think it's a good fit. We have not seen them go too crazy in the prep class outside of Royce Lewis and Alex Kirilloff, and that was at the beginning of this current front office. Not new, but current front office.
Yeah, so Kyle Teal, the catcher from Virginia. The Oakland A's have to be thrilled about this, right? Because they had one of the worst records, and they kind of lost in the first lottery, ended up going down to number 6, and the thought process was 5-player draft. If you're picking number 6, you're not getting one of those top guys. But I feel like they've prioritized up the middle talent, with some of their picks. And so Max Clark figures to stick in center field, should be a guy that arm is above average, good reads, routes, reactions, and it's a hit over power profile right now, but you've got some time to unlock that raw power and get it into games. So Max Clark, the prep outfielder, going 6th to Oakland, they've got to be excited about that pick.
Yeah, at points he was considered the best prep player in this class. So he is, they've had luck with Tyler Soderstrom recently. To give an example, Max Muncy, they have not been afraid to go prep. Then Cincinnati gets 7, and I think they're fascinating. And a guy I've kind of liked here, and I'm kind of debating it even now, is Chase Dollander, because Cincinnati is very good at fixing struggling arms. Look at Nick Boyle, who was kind of a mess in Notre Dame, and some of the other young developmental ones. And adding another arm could be interesting. It's like, do they go with him? Do they go with Rhett Lauder, who, is a little safer, maybe doesn't have the ceiling? I think I'm going to go with Dollander here and think that maybe they can even save a little bit of money to spread around, and you get a guy who at one point in time was talked about as the top player in this class going to a strong pitching pipeline system.
Yeah, I like Dollander to Tennessee. I think that's a good pick, and I think that works out really well. Number 8, Kansas City. This is a tough one for me because when I look at what they've done, they've done a lot of different things. They've slotted heavily when they took Frank Mazzucato. And then they stuck to slot when they got Bobby Witt, they got Asa Lacy, they got Gavin Cross. And in the last, I think, 4 drafts, they've taken a high school hitter, a college hitter, a prep pitcher, and a prep hitter. So they could go anywhere here. I liked Kyle Teal being the pick here, but obviously he's off the board. I'm thinking they may go something like a prep shortstop here. Arjun Nimala, I've seen him. One of those, he fits the models because he's just 17 years old, playing up the middle. Everything looks like he could work as far as shortstop or third base. And I do think there is a high ceiling on the raw power if you can get it into the games. So shortstop, Arjun Nimala from Strawberry Crest High School.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of ceiling, he is not too far behind the top 2 prep guys. It's just the risk. The Rockies at 9, this feels kind of easy at this point in time. Rhett Lauder is on the board. The rumors they want to go college pitcher. They went, overdrafted. It felt like a college pitcher a year ago. So Rhett Lauder out of Wake Forest feels like an easy pick right here, a top 10 guy on most boards.
Yeah, that's an absolute slam dunk. Just kind of seeing what he did in the College World Series, obviously looked very impressive. Kind of like what he did. Was impressed with that. The Marlins are in a weird place, okay? If you look at, they took Jacob Berry, very safe selection. It has not worked out so far. J.J. Pleday was not who they thought he would be. Khalil Watson was not who they thought he would be. Max Meyer is jury's still out. But this is something, I kind of want to give them something a little bit safer. This feels like a guy looking at how they've prioritize contact ability of some of their deals, the Luis Arise deal. Jacob Wilson, the shortstop out of Grand Canyon, to me feels like somebody, he rarely strikes out. It's a hit over power profile, but it's absolutely something where it fits that new mantra. They said, we are swinging and missing too much. This is what we want to do. So Jacob Wilson from Grand Canyon, the shortstop to Miami.
I feel like we're going to be in a run of college guys because the college hitting depth is so good. And we've kind of hit that point in the class where there's a bunch of fantastic college players. So for me, this kind of comes down with the Los Angeles Angels, Tommy Choi versus Matt Shaw, and what bat style you prefer. Personally, I'm huge on Shaw. I think he's a top 10 talent. And I think Choi is a top 10 talent as well, if I'm being honest. But at this point, at this selection, I feel like they've gone a little bit more in terms of hit tool. And I don't know. Part of me thinks that Matt Shaw probably has the best hitting power. So I'm going to go with Shaw here. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay at second. I don't know. Troy is more of a sure up the middle, but I don't know. I really like Matt Shaw's data, and I think that he has a chance to be a big time producer.
And this is something that I've noticed kind of to get off track for just a second. I've noticed teams being more willing to take a guy who's a second baseman over a shortstop high if they have an exceptional hit tool. You know, you look at a guy like a Tamar Johnson last year. Just kind of feels like that's something that we definitely have been doing more often recently. So, made it through 11 picks. We're going to get to picks 12 through 20 next, right here on Locked on MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. Sleeper is a fantasy sports and real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and through gaming. What I love about Sleeper is if you have an idea, a strong opinion about how somebody's going to do tonight, you think Vlad Guerrero might go yard, you think Shohei Ohtani in his next start, because he left with a blister, is going to strike out 7 or more batters, you can get up to 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball. They have a 100 times payout for 8-pick contests. You choose 8 players that you like, pick more or less on your favorite stats, home runs, strikeouts, hits, more, whatever it might be. You get your picks right, you can win big. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Now, terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. But they're operational in over 30 states. You got to check out Sleeper today. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a $100 match on your first deposit. Welcome back to the official Locked on MLB Network mock draft. Lindsay Crosby, host of Locked on MLB Prospects. Jeff Ellis, host of Locked on Guardians, our resident MLB draft expert. And we are at pick number 12, the Arizona Diamondbacks. I feel like their whole thing has been higher ceiling prep talent. You look at some of the guys they took, a Corbin Carroll, a Jordan Lawler, a Drew Jones, and honestly, I liked the idea of being able to grab Matt Shaw right here. When you started, I thought you were going to go with Tommy Troy, and I was going to turn right around and say Matt Shaw is the guy here. I'm going to go a little bit in a different direction. Noble Meyer, the right-hand pitcher out of Portland, Oregon. It's something where this Jesuit high school can develop some arms, and I think the fastball velocity, the sweepy slider, a changeup, really impressive athlete. I like what he does, and I think that he's someone that they can use as they're thinking about what the team needs and what the pipeline kind of has. They're getting a lot of their pitchers closer to the bigs. So Noble Meyer, the right-hand pitcher from Portland, Oregon, to the Diamondbacks at 12.
Yeah, and you go back to Blake Walton and Brennan Malone, so they have that history with prep talent in round 1. With the Cubs at 13, since 2013, they've drafted 1 prep player, Ed Howard, and 1 JUCO player. I know there's multiple people in charge during that time, but the rumors have been prep, but they were rumors a year ago. I feel like you're sitting here with the way things have played out. I have to look at lean into what they've done, and you're looking at college players. And when I go through kind of the list of college guys, and I think about also the front office pieces, some of those coming from Cleveland. One thing Cleveland always liked to do was take a guy who was more well thought of as a sophomore than a junior. And when I look at this list right now, Jacob Gonzalez was a top 5 guy on every board entering the year. And if you're looking for a solid, stable, safe producer who his value is a little down compared to a year ago, Gonzalez stands out to me.
Yeah, and it's something where he's fallen just a little bit, but they can grab him. They are not afraid to go after upside. They are not afraid to take talents who have fallen. So the Red Sox at 14. This is a really interesting one, and I've got 2 different things. The first round is always best player available. Like don't draft based off of a team need or things like that. But it's hard to kind of look at what they've been dealing with at shortstop and think, they probably have to be like the idea of a guy like a Tommy Troy, considered to be a top 10, top 15 talent, still on the board. Part of me wants to say, let's give Tommy Troy, even though he's probably going to move to second base or center field, but he's a bat first infielder. This is something that they're familiar with. They like these guys, even at second base, thinking like a Dustin Pedroia type. And so I think I'm going to go Tommy Troy out of Stanford to the Red Sox at 14.
More shortstops. They love a good shortstop in round 1, middle infielder.
Yep, that's what they do.
Yeah, and there's arguments certainly for that through the years that hey, they can move anywhere else. White Sox are fascinating to me at 15 because they were the most conservative team, and then they've gone back-to-back prep players, and they've had success with them. Montgomery looks great. Schultz has been fantastic, but the rumor this year is more related to college bats, which I think might be, all these situations. They're not afraid to go one way or another. They're just looking at the strength of the board, and the strength of the board is still likely at this point college performers. There are some interesting prep players, don't get me wrong, but I feel like when you're looking at the college group in general, even with all we have said, Yohandy Morales, Enrique Bradfield, Braden Taylor are all guys in this range. And it's Taylor that I'm going to go with. He gained a lot of fans in the postseason, and he's just been a consistent performer. First 2 years was not hitting the ball super hard. This year he came out and changed that. Like, he worked on his game, evolved it. I know another third baseman is maybe not what White Sox fans want, but I feel like he is kind of, him and Brock Wilken to me would be the two top college guys you could grab here.
Yeah, it's they've had that success going for those prep guys despite the risk. It's paid off, but it's still just something where I like the idea. And again, the depth is there because of that lost 2020 year. All those guys that would have been prep draftees, that's this class now. That's why the college class is so good. I'm sticking in the college class for the Giants. They're kind of hard to pin down. It feels like they like up the middle defenders. They like low vertical approach angle arms, kind of some of their things there. You look at some of the guys they've taken in the past, Reggie Crawford, Will Bednar, Patrick Bailey was a first rounder recently. This guy is one of my favorite quick risers in the draft, kind of one of my sleepers. I like outfielder Chase Davis here, out of Arizona, just somebody who this year really improved the swing and miss and had just a fantastic third season. And I feel like it's the same kind of idea as a guy like a Wyatt Langford, but at obviously 70% of the cost. So this is one of my favorite risers. I had him in a piece this week talking about this. Chase Davis of Arizona going to the Giants at 16.
And he's a guy, if you watch any of the draft combine to any of our listeners, like, he had some good interviews. He's like connecting with a lot of current and former pros, has a lot of, on top of great physical tools. So that would be a good get at pick 16. 17, the Orioles. Again, that team where all conservative and then prep last year, and it's turned out fantastic.
Oh my gosh. So good.
So good.
Holiday's like a top 5 prospect in baseball already.
And let's be honest, like Colton Cowser, some viewed as an overdraft. I think no one views it that way now.
Nope.
You can go back and look at, if Kjerstad had been healthy, like, they've nailed this process. They have as 100%
Rutschman,
nailed this draft process.
That was easy, but
Yeah.
Rutschman,
I mean, there was debate leading up, like, should they go under slot there? And they didn't. And that was, the right choice. I think they're in a situation to potentially go prep again, just because of the depth of this class. Now that the college players are still strong, but Cullen Hawk is kind of that guy, or Hauk, I'm probably saying his name wrong, who, he's a football recruit, he's a baseball recruit, he's probably got to go in the top 20 picks to get him signed. Another shortstop, you can never have too many. And if you're going to go with the prep guy here, I feel like he, to me, is probably the top prep player on the board, him or Aiden Miller, and I think he's just a little bit of an edge. So I kind of like him at this value.
I can definitely see that happening. It feels like it's a good pick for them. And talking about some of Brewers at 18, looking at what they've done, they tend to it feels like they put an emphasis on contact skills early. You look at some of their previous guys, Sal Frelick, Garrett Mitchell, Eric Brown Jr., guys who strong contact skills. They've taken guys who have fallen in the first round a couple times. I have them combining that with their Brewers devil magic when it comes to developing catchers. Blake Mitchell, the prep catcher out of Sinton, Texas, one of the more fascinating guys. He's hit 97 on the mound. Slider looks pretty decent. Like, he could be a two-way guy, but left-handed hitter, tons of raw power. I like Blake Mitchell, and I like how they can definitely improve any catcher that they get because they have that catching devil magic there with the Brewers.
No, I agree. And I like that someone else has recognized that. We talked about that on Locked On Guardians, that they have 100% double magic when it comes to catcher development. So I'm glad to see that everyone can recognize and understand what they do is the most unlikely between Narvaez and Contreras. I want the Guardians to hire their catching system. Yeah. Please, all of it. Just add it. The Rays at 19, this might be a little off the board because most people haven't going bats, but I think they are but I think, they used to go some prep arms, but I think they're kind of in a perfect situation for Hurston Waldrep. And you think about like Shane McClanahan, and there's some similarities there. Waldrep in college was asked to lean on his fastball. That's not his best pitch. As a Guardians writer, I've seen Leftwich come out and talk about how at Florida you don't get to go off design. There's a design, it's set, you got to go to it. And I don't think the design was the best for his pitch mix. I think the Rays have been really good at pitcher development too. And I think he is the perfect guy to go there and for them to turn into another monster.
I have beaten this drum on my show so many times. If you are a good pitching development team, take a pitcher from Florida, because they are not finished products and you can make them so much better. The Guardians love to do it. A lot of the smart teams.
3 years ago, 3 from there.
A lot of smart teams like to go do that. So, all right, we have made it through 19. We are going to get 20 through about 25 in this third segment coming up right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. Welcome back into Locked On MLB Prospects. We are doing the official Locked On Network mock draft. Lindsay Crosby, Locked On MLB Prospects. Jeff Ellis, Locked On Guardians. We're going to get through about pick 25 or so right here. Maybe a little bit of discussion about some risers and fallers. And then tomorrow's episode will be part 2 of this draft, going all the way through the Dodgers pick at 36. Maybe a little bit more. We'll see what kind of time we have. For the Blue Jays, I'm on the clock. Blue Jays at number 20. If you look at what they've done, they just take the guys that fall to them. Alek Manoah fell, Gunnar Hoglund fell, Brandon Barrera fell. They like to scoop guys that are projected higher and have fallen off the board for whatever reason. So not the profile they typically take, but a lot of places have Enrique Bradfield as a top 10, top 15 player, one of the fastest players in the country, the outfielder out of Vanderbilt. Something where really good, like not a ton of power, good contact ability, doesn't expand the zone a lot. Looks like he's going to be a fantastic defender that is a leadoff, old school on base type. So Enrique Bradfield going to the Jays at 20, they've got to be happy he fell this far to them.
Yeah, if you can work out that swing, he's going to be a star.
Yep.
That's
Easier
about the only thing holding him back. Yeah. The Cardinals are fun. They've done a great job in the first round, but as someone who does Locked On Guardians, the one thing we know is every year the guy that gets projected to the Guardians, Jerpe, McGreevy, has been someone instead the Cardinals take. So if we go through the mock drafts and we see the most common recent pick, it's been Colt Emerson. So the logic of late has been that Cleveland doesn't lean into the age models as much as they used to. They actually drafted 2 19-year-olds last year, which is unheard of. Yeah. St. Louis has done, I think, more with the age models of late. And we're looking at a kid who's 17 with good contact skills. I know a lot of people have them on college bats right now, and they could. But again, Jordan Walker, 2020 was their last prep guy. It's not that long ago. So I'm going to go with Colt Emerson here, just based on it feels like every year whoever is getting mocked to Cleveland is who the Cardinals grab.
Yeah. Emerson, Auburn commit, something where I think he was Gatorade Player of the Year for the state. Really good selection. I like that being a good spot for him. If you go to the Mariners, really have done a lot of high school talent. They've got 3 picks in the top 30. This is a tough one because they can take just about anybody, and they have the money to get them to sign. But I'm going to go with Aiden Miller from J.W. Mitchell. To me, it feels like really one of the most physical guys in the class, big, athletic, explosive power, somebody who we could absolutely see as something where, yes, he pitches some, can hit low 90s on the mound, but he's going to have to work on the athleticism. Definitely something where he's going to be a corner infielder, but I like what he's done when he's been healthy. Broken hamate bone this spring didn't help him too much. But Aiden Miller, the third baseman out of high school, going to the Mariners at 22.
Yeah, probably most consensus sports top guy available. And the Mariners kind of own this draft once you get outside those teams picking the top 5, thanks to all those picks. So Cleveland, I've spent many a year looking through their data. One of the big things for them in recent years is Cape data. They love high Cape performance. Chase DeLauder is practically drafted entirely off of Cape performance. Well, they have gone away from age-based models. It is still a net positive, for them. It's not going to make them not draft a guy, but it's a bonus. And then production is always important. And I'm just sitting here at the draft, and this will be a pick that's a little non-traditional, but Brock Wilken, because MVP of the Cape, he, in the old draft system, he was 17 as a high school kid on draft day, and he's got great production. Wake Stadium is very hitter friendly, let's be honest. But the K rate is also not terrible. Like he really worked on making better contact. Cleveland, they need to add power to that system. It's a wasteland when it comes to power. And yeah, he's not necessarily the traditional type, but when you're looking for Cape performers in this range, which has been a massive driver for them, it's Brock Wilken, and be back-to-back Cape MVPs for Cleveland.
I mean, they know what they like. They stick with it. It's hard to complain that it's not really worked out necessarily for them. So absolutely makes sense going with that. And this works out really well for Atlanta, because the Braves have had a tendency, and a little bit of difference here because Dana Brown's no longer there, but under Alex Anthopoulos, they've really liked to take those guys that are two-way players. Now, Atlanta's they've leaned pitcher the last several years. I don't necessarily think that's an organizational preference. I think that's how the board's shaken out and how they like their pitching development. But Bryce Eldridge, two-way player out of James Madison High School in Virginia, one of the better two-way prep guys we've seen in a while. He's 6'7". He can already get the fastball up to 97, 2 different breaking balls. The slider looks really good, has a plus changeup. And then he also plays first base and outfield. He's played some center field, but he's considered to have double plus raw power. Atlanta likes those dual sport guys, and they like those two-way guys, and letting it naturally settle what's going to happen when they get into the minor league system. So I've got Bryce Eldridge going to Atlanta with pick 24 to close out the first half of the mock draft. Who do you have going to the Padres at 25?
High ceiling, sliding. And it comes down to, do you want a pitcher? Do you want a hitter? Dylan Head or Thomas White? Last year, we saw him lean heavily into pitching, even though it's been a little bit of a bugaboo in terms of their development. But I feel like Thomas White is the guy here that, you just keep adding prep arms, because as long as they stay healthy, it's going to be a tradable asset. You can always bank on that. And I feel like Thomas White kind of stands out. A lot of places consider him the number 2 prep arm in the class. Him sitting there for a team that likes to go for ceiling, and it was Snelling and Lesko a year ago. So keep adding to the stable of interesting arms.
And definitely one of the, I think the highest lefty prep arm in the class. There's just not a lot of lefties, it feels like, in this first round at all. So getting something a little bit different there is really good for them. So if you have comments, thoughts about our first half of our mock draft, leave them in the comments below. Tomorrow, we will have the second half of this mock draft, and then stay tuned. Jeff and I will be live on Sunday night for the first round of the MLB draft. It's going to be around an hour in length. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. But until then, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.